This is Mindset for Success with your host, Dr. Leslie Knudsen. Each week, she will interview women entrepreneurs to explore the unconscious psychological struggles they faced as they build their businesses and how they overcame them. Here's your host, Leslie Knudsen.
I'm so excited to introduce my next guest, Daniel Dobson-Smith, who uses the pronouns they and them and has a fascinating international career path that began as a college professor of hotel and service management. Following this, they held senior executive and C-suite positions in many medium and large corporations across many continents and in a wide range of sectors. They are the founder of The Soul Trained, which offers coaching, psychotherapy, and business consulting, and is a board advisor for Women Entrepreneur Global. Daniel is originally from the UK and lives now in Northern California with their husband, David. Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining me today.
Oh, Leslie, it's a pleasure, and thank you for such a kind and wonderful introduction.
You're welcome. So, Daniel, as you know, it takes a lot to be a successful female entrepreneur, and business acumen is key, but we rarely talk about the psychological challenges that women often face to achieve that success. I refer to these as those negative and sometimes persistent thoughts that create doubt, undermine success, and can destroy self-confidence and risk-taking. So I wanted to start by asking you a few questions, and we'll kind of try to see what we can do to explore this. Can you start by sharing with us your fascinating history and professional journey of first working in the UK and then moving here to the US?
Yeah, I mean, I literally grew up in the hospitality industry. My parents owned a pub when I was between the ages of 9 and 16, and so it felt like just a natural evolution for me to go to college and get my undergrad in hotel management, I think I owe the start of my career to a woman that I met while I was doing my undergrad. She was a mature student, and she was the head of a department at a local hospitality college. And she said to me, "I think you would be a good teacher of this subject." And being a young, naive, up for it, excitable person, I was like, okay. So I'll give it a go. And after my undergrad, I went straight into a adult college to learn how to be a teacher and a college professor, and was given a job, was awarded a job by this woman who had kind of, I guess, mentored or identified or advocated for me. That led to me at one point in time being the youngest college professor in the UK, which was both uplifting and terrifying at the same time. And I can remember one particular class that I was running on public house operations. There was a gentleman in that class who was born on the same day in the same year as my mum, and he had owned a pub for 25 years, which was longer than I'd been alive. And I can remember very distinctly a moment where I was handing back this gentleman an assignment, a paper that he had written on running a pub, and I had graded it a C. And I just felt so wrong. This young 20-something-year-old judging and assessing how this person was running their pub. And so in that moment, it was that very moment I was like, okay, I got to get out of teaching, and I've got to go and get some experience, real world, industrial experience under my belt, and eventually come back to teaching. And so I moved out of teaching and went to find a position in what was called personnel in those days. Today we refer to that as HR or talent or people. And I went to work for the then great British retailer Marks and Spencer, and over the years have just carved out a career in the space of organizational transformation, organizational psychology, performance development, and learning and development. And that's really taken me to where I am today. And I still have plans to become a teacher again one day in a college. But right now, I find myself getting involved in all of the things that you introduced me as. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the potted version of my career that's brought me to here today.
It's very interesting that you came over to the U.S. and then had a very kind of busy and important corporate world experience as well, and left it and did the brave, courageous thing to launch your own coaching business. And I'm sure it probably came with some risk. And if so, how were you able to manage this?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest risk is, how in the hell am I going to pay the mortgage? You know, and I guess I, like many people, you know how they say a goldfish grows to the size of the tank that it exists in. I think, my monthly outgoings grew to the size of my monthly incomings.
For sure, yeah.
So making that shift from a corporate world job where medical insurance was paid and there was a monthly salary, and not that anyone is guaranteed. Not that anyone in a paid employment job is guaranteed that job is going to go on forever. I think we can sometimes lull ourselves into a false sense of security that we have security. And I think it was that exact belief, or me reminding myself that even in the corporate world, there is no guarantee that my monthly income or my salary is going to continue ad infinitum. And I think that was the biggest thing for me in making a switch from a corporate job, corporate salaried job, into being an entrepreneur. That was the thing that gave me the confidence to do it.
Escalating the risk.
Say that again, Leslie.
Right, and it was like, it's a little bit like de-escalating the risk.
100%. Minimizing it. Minimizing
the risk.
Right, and just taking a perspective on that. And there were some actual concrete steps that I took to minimize and manage the risk. But the biggest one was the belief in myself, and the belief that what I had to offer the world was valuable beyond a salaried role.
And tell me a little bit about that belief. How did you learn to listen to it?
Lots of psychotherapy, lots of my own coaching, an incredibly supportive husband who believes in me, I think sometimes more than I believe in me, and slowly but surely allowing myself to believe that because as an entrepreneur, I think what you're bringing into the world is a part of who you are. At least I think the successful entrepreneurs are the ones that whatever it is that they're putting out there, whether it be a product or a service, that they're putting themselves into it, and it's paying attention to the success and paying attention to the signs were an important part of my process of becoming more comfortable, and less risk averse.
Setbacks are, of course, a way of life. But as entrepreneurs, But as entrepreneurs, setbacks can feel especially heavy, given that entrepreneurs do not necessarily have access to much structure up front and support to help them move through difficulty. I just wondered if you've had experience with setbacks, and if so, how'd you overcome them?
I mean, at the beginning of this year, when the world was turned upside down, not only by a lot of social injustice that was happening across America, but also with the COVID pandemic. And there was a period of time at the beginning of this year where companies that would normally invest in the sorts of things that I offer, pulled right back. They had jobs to protect for people. They had businesses to protect, and so discretionary spending and investment in coaching or learning and development or cultural consultation was at the bottom of the list of priorities as businesses around the world struggled to right themselves and keep themselves afloat. And all of a sudden, I saw my business pipeline just dry up overnight, and that was a moment. That was an oh shit moment. And in those moments, what did I do? I kept on believing, first of all, and I just got on the phone and I called and I adapted, and my entire practice moved online into the virtual world as opposed to in person, and that was a big deal for someone like me and in what I do, because for the last 25 years I had a belief that potent learning experiences, whether they be within a group or one-to-one, are only as potent and as effective as they are when you do it in person, because there's a level of energy exchange and there's a level of physicality that you get in rooms with people that leads to change and transformation. And if anything, 2020 has taught me that belief that I had for 25 years is fundamentally untrue. And my clinical practice is online, my coaching practice is online, and I have been running some incredibly effective and impactful and evocative learning experiences around inclusion and belonging, leadership development and management development. And so I think the setback, I always say it's not the falling down that counts, it's the manner in which we get back up that counts the most. And I think 2020 has taught me about adaptability, resilience, and bounce back ability.
Right. And also using your love of teaching and your love of probably being flexible with how you get your message across, and knowing that the message that you have is authentic and something that you can pull out and share with your clients, with your clients.
Well, thank you, Leslie. I hadn't been conscious of that until you brought it to my attention, so thank you.
Once a teacher, always a teacher.
Indeed.
So let me just sort of do a sharp right turn and ask you, certainly this will rely a lot on your coaching practice. What do you think having good founder DNA is? And how would you go about evaluating someone having this?
I think good founder DNA is about being clear on your why being clear on your lane,